Shivoham, 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 Shivoham. Shivoham, 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 Shivoham. Shivoham, Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Manojabam Marutatulya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Varishtam Vatatmajam Vanarayutha Mukhyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadhye. Namaste. Welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam. With our deepest prayers and the most humble salutations that we offer at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Sri Hanuman. With prayers that he guides us every day throughout this yagna, we begin the very first step of learning some of the powerful and yet very simple yogic kriyas. Please be aware that I cannot see you. I have no idea of your age or physical fitness or capability of doing this. But I do know that these kriyas are safe in general for everyone to practice. Unless you are taking very severe medications, you have just come out of surgery, or you're pregnant, please be very careful when practicing these. You can practice these in a very mild manner. If you have any questions with regard to these practices, please consult with your physician before starting this or any such practices that we offer at KYG. Having said that, welcome. Thank you for joining the satsang. This is the perfect time for you to practice if you are watching this and participating in this from India. But if you are practicing and watching this from US and other parts of the world where the timing is not suitable, then I would suggest you just practice for the sake of it, make some notes, or refer back to this video at a more convenient time. You need to have at least 2 hours of gap between food and these practices, because the Vayu principle is here, food is here, 2 different elements. The fire is activated when you eat food. You don't want to upset that fire which is in the interest of digestion. But now we are going to work with the Vayu principle, and the Vayu has to be free to move, and therefore you need to give a gap between these 2 elements. In other words, at least a minimum of 2 hours after a medium snack, after a heavy meal, at least 3.5 hours till the digestion process is done. All right. Please also note that we have 111 days of practicing learning and practicing these kriyas. I'm not going to give you all the kriyas on the very first day. We will add kriyas. There are many, many kriyas, right? From Omkara Kriya to Kakashuddhi Kriya to Agnisara to Markata Kriyas, and so many kriyas which you have probably never heard of. All these are very powerful methods of keeping the lungs in a very healthy state. We shall now begin. Some of you are already aware of this. If you have come to my yoga classes or if you're participating in the yoga classes, some of these kriyas will be very familiar to you all. So bear with me for those of you who know. But I'm going to assume that this is class 1 for everyone, and I'm going to start fresh. So that those of you who have just walked into this class and this part of the satsang, part of this yagna, you don't get discouraged and you will learn this from day 1. The first kriya that we practice is Omkara Kriya. Just like any other muscle, the lungs are also muscles. So you cannot straight away go into a kriya like Bhastrika Kriya or very powerful pranayama practices, because the lung muscles are weak. So you have to warm them up. So even among kriyas, there are kriyas that are very gentle, and slowly you warm up to more aggressive kriyas. Also helps the mind to get slowly acclimatized and more focused and more mindful. In this Omkara Kriya, there is a difference between chanting the simple Om and this Om. In this Omkara Kriya, we make the sound Ha, H-O-U-M, if you will. Home, not, it's like home, I'm going home, we say, right? Home, H-O-M-E, home. We want the Ha sound to come out first. In the Siddha Siddhanta Paddhati, or the tradition of the Siddhas, the very first sound that they say came out in this universe was Ha. It is no coincidence that Hanuman also has the Shabda or the word starting with Ha. Ha is the mother of all sounds. And from that came all the other sounds. Om, of course, is a vibration. From the sound that emerges from that vibration, the first sound that emerges is Ha. And therefore, Ha, that is why Hayagriva Narayana is considered as the giver of Vedas and all the sound, because he is the one who says Ha. And therefore, that is the basis of this practice, this Kriya. It puts us in touch with the fundamental sound of the universe, the sound that brought forth creation. Ha also helps you exhale. Having said that, most of these kriyas are for detoxifying. Detoxifying what? The body. More than 70% of the toxins in the body are not eliminated by our stools or urine or sweat or tears, but they are eliminated through the breath. Majority of the toxins. How do you eliminate? By focusing on exhalation. You may not have heard this. This may be news to many of you. The breathing in yoga, yogic breath, always focuses on exhalations, never on inhalations. Inhalation is automatic. We will always inhale because of the instinct to survive. You don't worry about inhalations. Now, if I tell you to take a deep breath, what would we all do? We would start with a deep inhalation, because we assume deep breathing is breathe in deeply. What about breathing out? What about getting rid of the toxins? So we have to, that is not the right way to breathe. When we say deep breathing, you can breathe in a little bit, but your entire focus should be how long can I exhale? How much can I exhale? The volume of air that leaves your body should be as much as possible. The length of exhalation should be as long as possible. So you empty the lungs, nearly empty the lungs, because technically, medically, it's not possible to completely empty the lungs. But nevertheless, you empty as much as if you feel there is no more air left, then you breathe in. We can't do this every day, every time, every moment. But when you sit for kriyas, when you sit for practice, and you spend 15-20 minutes of practice, you will have to learn to focus on the quality of your exhalation. And here is one very simple rule when you want to correlate breath with your health, the longer you're able to breathe, the more fully you're able to exhale, the more healthy you will be. Period. It's as simple as that, and yet very powerful. So learn to exhale. When you're stressed, learn to exhale. In Tamil, we say perummoochu, or we say heaved a sigh of relief. What does that all that mean? Heave a sigh of relief. It's all breathing out. Exhalation is so vital and so natural to us. And many times we forget to exhale. We always want to grab. And therefore, first, let us learn to exhale. When we learn to exhale, we learn to give. When we learn to give, we learn to relax. And then all beneficial things begin to happen in the body. Immunity is built when your exhalation, the quality of your exhalation builds. All right. So, having said that, that forms the basis of all Kriyas. Okay? Omkara Kriya, therefore, begins with Ha. So we are going to allow a lot of air to escape along with the chant of the Om. So otherwise, normally what I would do, I will say Om, but this time I'm going to do Om. I have to feel the air coming out. So you can't hold it for long because the air goes out very fast because of your mouth being open like this, right? And what you do is you sit straight. If you're sitting on a chair, sit straight. Don't be leaning back while doing this. Sit on the edge of the chair or a stool that you are. Tomorrow I'll show you a chair, how to sit on a chair and do these kriyas as well. For those of you who are older and cannot sit on the floor. All right. How is this done? Watch. I'm going to breathe in, normal, with my mouth closed. I'm going to breathe in. Watch first. And then I go, and I breathe in and come up. I breathe in with my nostrils. I breathe out through the mouth. So the lot of air escapes through the mouth. In through the nostril, out through the mouth. In this Omkara Kriya, there is a difference. The M part, the last part of the Om, you cannot stress. Like normally in Om, what would you do? Om. We do that. That is Omkara practice. That is a different practice. Kriya, you end with just one bit of Om, because by then the mouth is closed. When the mouth is closed, no more air is escaping. So that's the end of Om. So you don't prolong the If you're prolonging the that means there is a lot more air left in your lungs. So you got to finish it all through the mouth. And just towards the very end, close the mouth, say and come up. All right? So let's give it a try. Like I said, we'll learn one Kriya every day and practice some more if time permits, because we have only 30 minutes to practice. And as we go along, in a couple of weeks' time, we'll be able to squeeze in a lot of Kriyas, one after the other. Your body will be ready, and you would have trained your body to get into that zone of good pranayama practice. And if you can learn this for the rest of your life, half an hour every day or every 2 days, it's the greatest blessing. And I am privileged and honored to be able to share that with you all. Okay, Omkara Kriya. Let us try that once, okay? Don't worry about getting it right. Don't have too many questions. Don't be tense. Don't be afraid. Just relax and enjoy it as a game. I'm here to correct and keep repeating again and again. So if you missed something else, you will remember something else the next day. So I'm an expert in repeating these things. So bear with me. So just playfully engage. Let us try this Om once. You're going to inhale through the nostrils, exhale along with a lot of air. You're going to bend forward and crush the lungs. When you go like this, the lungs are getting crushed, air is escaping. It may be very short. Don't compare my length with your length. Some of you may be able to do much longer than me. Some of you may not be able to keep up with me. Use mine as merely as a reference, okay? Do as long as you can. Okay. Jai Bajrang. Let's begin the first Om in this yagna. Breathe in and let's go. Inhale. Come up. Relax. See, it wasn't that bad. Let's try it one more time. Inhale. Inhale, come up. Exhale. In between two Oms, depending on your age and fitness, you take rest. Take a couple of breaths. And then say, let me try now, the third time, the fourth time. It'll become easier and easier as you do this. So we are going to do this for 10 times. We already did twice, but that was just a practice. We will try and do 10 Omkara Kriyas for today. Okay? Let's take in a deep breath, and we'll pause in between each. Later on in a couple of days, we'll try and join this with every breath. We'll try and do this. But for now, between each Om, we'll pause for one deep inhalation, exhalation, and then again, so every alternate breath, you're going to do the Omkara Kriya. I hope I am clear. If not, if you have any questions, please text. I may not be able to see it right now, but I will make it a point to go through it. I'm sure I can go through the text chat, and I will address it in the classes that come. 10 Oms. Are you ready? With every Om, one of our sense organs gets cleansed. We have 5 senses of action and 5 senses of perception. Let that happen automatically. Don't apply your mind to that. I'm just putting in these thoughts. So there is a sense in this madness. All right. Let's begin. Inhale. Breathe and come up. Breathe out. Inhale. Breathe and come up. Breathe out. Third one. Inhale. Breathe and come up. Breathe out. Fourth, inhale. Breathe and come up. Breathe out. Fifth, ready? Inhale. Breathe and come up. Breathe out. Sixth, ready? Inhale. Inhale, come up. Exhale, relax. If some of you are tired, just pause. Seventh, ready? Inhale. Inhale, come up. Exhale, pause. 8, ready? Inhale. Inhale, come up. Exhale. 9th, ready? Inhale. Inhale, come up. Exhale. One last one. 10th, ready? Inhale. And exhale. Breathe and come up. relax. Focus on deep breathing with your eyes closed. Focus on your exhalation. Exhale comfortably to as much as you can, and then inhale naturally and deeply. But focus on the quality of your exhalation. My pace is only for reference. Don't try to keep up with my pace and go out of breath at your own pace. Inhale and then exhale fully. And relax. Wonderful. There is one more pranayama that I will introduce today as part of this yagna, and we will do this every day. Based on what we just did, you're going to inhale for 4 counts and exhale for 8 counts. So it goes something like this. Let me demonstrate this to you. And we'll add a Ramayana mantra to this. It becomes a very powerful, beautiful, wonderful way of pranayama and deep meditation and namasmarana, yoga, bhakti, everything comes together in this wonderful practice that I've called it Ramanama Pranayama. It's based on this fundamental principle in yoga that your exhalation should be twice the count of your inhalation. Inhalation in yoga is called puraka. Exhalation is called rechaka. It never mind if you don't remember these names. Puraka, if you breathe in puraka for 4 seconds, you're going to breathe out in rechaka for 8 seconds. So it goes like this. Watch. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You breathe in, 2, 3, 4. You breathe out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's try that a couple of times together. I'll keep it slightly fast, medium pace, so that all of us will be able to do this. So you will learn and you will teach yourself to ration your breath as you breathe out, so you don't run out of breath in the 5th count or the 6th count. It is natural to happen initially because you're breathing out all your breath in the first 6 counts. You have to lengthen and ration the breath. Then it becomes, along with cleansing, it becomes a deeply meditative exercise. So let us try that together. Let us sit up tall and straight, take in a deep breath, all of us. And let us breathe out. And let's begin. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So instead of 1 and 8, I say inhale and exhale, right? The idea is to practice. Don't speak it with your mouth. Don't repeat 1, 2, 3, 4 with your mouth. Your mouth is closed because if air escapes through your mouth, this entire breathing goes waste. So you have to breathe in through the nostril, breathe out. For those of you who know how to breathe through the throat, those of you who know, otherwise we will learn this slowly. It's called the Ujjayi Breath. All the suction is done by the throat. The sound goes something like this. That is the sound of Vayu. And hidden in this Vayu is the Vayu Putra Hanuman. So that is how you awaken the pranic energy, by listening to the sound. Sound is so important, right? So when you learn to do the Ujjayi breath, the Ujjayi is also used in this Anuloma Viloma, as it is called, or it is also known as Nadi Shodhana Pranayama. We will do this left in, right out and all of that later. Left nostril, right nostril. Don't worry about that. Today simply learn to establish Inhale for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts. And then added to this is a tune. I breathe in Ram, Ram, Ram. I breathe out Ram, 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 Ram. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram, Ram, Ram. Breathe in Ram, Ram, Ram. Breathe out Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram, Ram, Ram. Listen to the sound. Ram, Ram, Ram. Breathe out Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram, Ram, Ram. Breathe in Ram, Ram, Ram. Breathe out Ram, Ram, Ram. Ram, Ram, Ram. Wonderful. Excellent. So now I'm going to play. You will see on the screen a video. This video is also available in our YouTube channel. You see that scrolling text which will mention the YouTube channel. For those of you who are new to this channel, go to the channel. There will be a playlist called Ramanama Pranayama. Once you learn this 1 or 2 days, you can take that and practice at your own convenience. Don't overdo it initially. We have 111 days to go. So be patient and do it 1 day at a time. But if you want to learn and practice it, then you can use those videos. We have a 16-minute practice of Ramanama Pranayama. We have a 24-minute practice of Ramanama Pranayama. We have a 48-minute practice of Ramanama Pranayama. It's one whole mandala. So that is all you need to do. That is the meditation on Ramanam, and let the energy, the cycle, the rhythm of Ramanam and the breath all merge together. When the breath and Ramanam merges, it is like Hanuman meeting Rama. That is the most powerful combination you can generate in your body. Vayu and Agni. Rama is Agni, right? He's the Surya. Sita is the water. He's the Surya. He's the Purusha. He's the Agni, Ra, from the sun, Ram. So Agni element and Vayu element come together. No disease in your body can withstand that combination. That is why you combine Ramanam along with the Pranayama. Okay? If you want to chant any other mantra, you're all welcome to do all those experiments. But this, and this is how we will do for the next 111 days, Ramanama Pranayama. So let us watch the video and follow the guided session. I'll let it play for 5 minutes or so while I move to the satsang stage, and then at the time we will end this practice. We won't do this for 16 minutes. We will just do for 4 to 5 minutes today. Just get the taste of this. All right, and then we will carry on into the satsang. So awaken this Hanuman within you. Chant the Rama. Bring your consciousness together to enjoy the story and the glory of Hanuman. Let us begin that video. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale 1, 2, 3. Exhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale.
साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ श्रीराम राम रामेति रमे रामे मनोरमे सहस्रनाम तत्तुल्यं राम नाम वरानने। श्रीराम राम रामेति रमे रामे मनोरमे सहस्रनाम तत्तुल्यं राम नाम वरानने। श्रीराम राम रामेति रमे रामे मनोरमे सहस्रनाम तत्तुल्यं राम नाम वरानने। ॐ हनुमान हनुमान श्रीराम दूत हनुमान हनुमान। हनुमान हनुमान श्रीराम दूत हनुमान 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 श्री Hanuman, 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 Shri Ramadut Hanuman, 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 Shri Ramadut Hanuman. Jai Jai Hanuman, Jai Hanuman, 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 Shri Ramadut Hanuman, 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 Shri Ramadut Hanuman. Maruti Raya, Jai Hanuman, Maruti Raya, Jai Hanuman, Mahanubhava, Jai Hanuman, Mahanubhava, Jai Hanuman, Vanara Veera, Vayu Kumara, Jai Hanuman, Vayu Kumara, Jai Hanuman, Vanara Veera, Jai Hanuman, Vanara Veera, Jai Hanuman, 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 Shri Ramadut Hanuman, 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 Shri Ramadut Hanuman. Anjani Putra, Jai Hanuman, Anjani Putra, Jai Hanuman, Ati Balavanta, Jai Hanuman, Ati Balavanta, Jai Hanuman, Shri Ramaduta, Jai Hanuman, Shri Ramaduta, Jai Hanuman, Shri Ramaduta, Jai Hanuman, Shri Ramaduta, Jai Hanuman, 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 Shri Ramadut Hanuman, 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 Shri Ramadut Hanuman, Shri Ramadut Hanuman, Shri Ramadut Hanuman, 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 Hanuman. Namaste. For those of you who have just joined, welcome to Kaivalya Yoga Gurukulam for this delightful satsang. In these 100 odd days that we have set out with humility, because it has to be ordained by the divine, guided by the divine to make it possible. At no point should any of us take the credit that we are able to do something like this. We will see. We will humbly, prayerfully approach the satsang. But as I always say, no matter what happens to technology or technical disruptions, let your sadhana continue for the next 111 days. Let us seek motivation from each other. Let us bring at least one of our senses under discipline and take one of our weaknesses out once and for all. Thus, we will give room for divinity to blossom within. I have today, I said we are going to do the Sundarakand, and we will in the 111 days. But we are not just ready to start off straight away with the Sundarakand chapter. I know many of you are probably aware of the story and say, why not? But then there are also those children, perhaps youngsters who are listening to this, and people from the West who are not so familiar with the Rama story. But I am not going into the entire Ramayana. It's impossible to touch that. But nevertheless, before we go into Sundarakand and go into verse by verse and go into the details of all the exploits of our beloved Hanuman, I want to establish a background. Even for those of you who know the story in general, you might find some of these highlights, some things which I have found very interesting, very intriguing, the way Valmiki brings it out. So I want to share that today and perhaps tomorrow. That sets the basis. Then when we launch into Sundarakand, we will know the basic background, what was happening on that seashore where Hanuman was standing ready to take that leap. How did that even come about? Okay. And so very briefly, the story of Rama is the prince of Ayodhya. He has 3 brothers. There are 4 brothers. They love each other. Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, Shatrugna, born of 3 mothers. And it so happens that they go and spend their childhood with the gurus, and they learn the Vedas. They learned everything. They are all self-enlightened souls, if you will. That is the kind of education they receive when they are children. And then they come back to the kingdom, and in that course, Rama meets Sita, wins her over, gets married to her, and then comes to Ayodhya. He's ready to be throned. He's ready to be declared as the heir prince, the crown prince of Ayodhya. And so, on the eve of that coronation, if you will, pardon me, on the eve of that coronation, his father calls him and says, unfortunately, one of your stepmothers has a change of plans. She wants her son to be crowned the king. And not only that, she wants you to go to the forest. Why would the king listen to that? Because he had promised that wife of his, Kaikeyi, that her name, that he would grant her the wishes. And she said, I will ask you these 2 wishes, these 2 boons that you have promised to give me at the right time. And poisoned by her maidservant, she gets this idea that why not my son? Why should Rama be the dear and near one for everybody? What about my son? He will always be neglected, and his children, and so on. And therefore I want him to be the king. And so at that crucial moment, she puts forward her boons to the king and says, now you fulfill these desires of mine, these boons of mine. This was a time period where sound was so important that the kings and the rishis and the yogis would speak, and once their word was given, they would never back out. They would never say, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, I told you this. So it was considered a great, a black spot in the character, a sin, if you will, if somebody would give a word and forget it. And therefore, word that was given was very powerfully safeguarded among the kings millions of years ago. More than 1 million years ago, the story is, right? Like I said, these are not based on this today's science. Someday science will understand this and change its course, like it has done in many other fields. It has always come back and met what the Vedanta talks about. Nevertheless, we leave that. So if you can't digest this as science and logic, just enjoy it as a fantasy story. And that's fine. Because at this point, whatever your mind is engaged in, the mind becomes that. So there was this time where the word was so very important. And therefore the king, especially the king, would be considered as an embodiment of truth, embodiment of virtue, embodiment of ethics. Unlike what we perhaps see today. And therefore, Dasharatha, the king, could not back out at that moment. He could not say, please. And he did, of course, try, ask me some other boon, ask me what else, don't do this. He said, in the worst case scenario, your son can become, but why send my eldest son Rama to a forest? Why send him out for 14 years? But nevertheless, she said, no, this has to be done. I don't want any impediment in the way of my son becoming the king. And therefore, he should be out for 14 years so that his children or anybody cannot come in the way of my son Bharata becoming the king. So the story goes that Rama listens to his father's boon, and that very next morning, instead of being crowned as the heir prince of Ayodhya, he decides to walk out of the kingdom into an exile. His brother Lakshmana follows him, says, I need to come with you. Somebody has to protect you. His just newly married wife says, I cannot live without you. I will also come with you. And so the three of them go towards the forest. So the story goes, they go into the forest, they begin to live. The forest is described by Valmiki, and all of this is beautifully done. And in the forest, a demon king Ravana comes and kidnaps Sita and takes her to some place Rama doesn't know where. Because Sita looks at a golden deer and says, oh, that's a beautiful deer, I want it. And Rama, as they're all warriors, so Rama says, I will hunt that deer for you. And so he chases that golden deer, little realizing that that golden deer is actually a demon in disguise. And when he goes far away from Sita and he shoots the deer, when it dies, the deer says, oh Lakshmana, oh Sita, and dies. So upon hearing these shouts, Sita says, that must be Rama crying for help. So she tells Lakshmana, who is staying in the forest to guard her, go after your brother, don't worry about me. Lakshmana pleads and says, Rama, nothing can come and befall, no pain or calamity can befall this prince. He's a strong warrior, nothing can happen to him. But she says, no, this was the voice of Rama, go help him. And so Lakshmana leaves to help Rama, and Sita is left alone in the forest when this demon king comes in the guise of a mendicant and says, give me alms. She goes to give him alms, he grabs her, puts him in his chariot, and he flies away in what is called the Pushpaka Vimana. So Pushpaka Vimana, the signs of making flying machines, is there in Atharvana Veda. So Ravana, who is an expert in Atharvana Veda, the name of this demon king Ravana, had understood and built one like that. And so he flies with Sita away. So when Rama and Lakshmana come back, they see the hut empty. And Rama begins to lament the loss of his loved one. Rama and Sita are like two souls. And so there's one soul in two bodies, as we say. So the separation is most painful. It is very parallel to the understanding of Shiva and Shakti. When Sati dies, Shiva goes into deep sorrow and meditation, and he withdraws himself from all of creation. And therefore, everybody gets together and says, you have to marry, there has to be a Shakti element in you, revive her back. And so that principle of Purusha and Prakriti are so important in creation to function, in your creation and my creation. What does that mean? In our consciousness, for us to establish that balance. Why are we seeing this fear or this imbalance and violence and all of this? Is because within us there is the separation of Purusha and Prakriti. We are not joined these in each one of us. So Ramayana is a story that is happening inside each one of us. So Rama cries and cries, and together with Lakshmana they go hunting, and they slowly start coming down into Kishkinda region. Kishkinda and all of that is the southern part of the Western Ghats today. As it says in the internet, that's the only way I can tell you. I don't know this for sure myself, because 1,000,000 years ago, a lot of geography would have changed. But nevertheless, because there are so many temples that has been carried on for hundreds of years, it's possible that some parts of these are very authentic and real even to this day. So it is the Karnataka and the southern part, right, all the way down to Kerala and so on. All those must have been dense forests. So Lakshmana and Rama start walking down. And in Kishkinda, as they are walking down, the story begins, well, our dear Hanuman is introduced. That is the first time Valmiki introduces Hanuman. So I want to share how and what those beautiful moments there and parts of that. So hopefully we will be able to do that in today's satsang. So let us go to the slides. Before I go any further, let me see, I should go back. I think I'm not in the beginning. Can you go to the beginning of that slide, please? Thanks. Before I go any further, I want to point out the references that I use for these verses of Ramayana. Like I told you yesterday, this is the first time I'm myself studying Valmiki Ramayana. I've kind of read it in bits and pieces and heard about it, but especially this part of Sundarakand and so on. And therefore, I've borrowed heavily from these two sources that I want to. Can you go? Have you exposed show all? You have done that to all the slides? Okay. Sorry about that. Trying to juggle between a lot of things. And so I want to put it out there that these are the two websites. In case you are interested, you can also go and read further. They have done an excellent job in spelling out the Ramayana verse by verse. And they've also taken the pain to explain it word by word for some of you who want to dive deeper and study it and make it your own sadhana. Because 24,000 verses will take years to master. And every time you come back to a verse, a new meaning will unfold itself. So as and when she's ready, we'll get that. So here you go. Excellent. So these are the two websites that I am going to be referring to for the Sanskrit. I don't have time because every day I have to type in and prepare 30 slides, 20, 26, 27, 30 slides when we start the Sundarakand. And so I won't have time to actually type it myself. I may do that if I see some mistakes, but I don't think there are. The first one is valmiki.iitk. IITK is IIT Kanpur. So that website is maintained by IIT Kanpur. They've done a fantastic job. So valmiki.iitk.ac.in. IN stands for India. The other website has also done an excellent job, is valmikiramayan.net. So please, if you want to, if you're interested, you can study that, but I wanted to be upfront and tell you that these are the sources that I will be referring to in the course of the next 111 days. Now it's 110 days as we go along with this study. All right. So let me begin with the introduction of Hanuman. Where does Valmiki and how does he introduce Hanuman into this picture in Ramayana? Hanuman comes in at Kishkinda. That story, that Kanda is where he comes in. And then Sundarakand, he takes over. He is the hero of the Sundarakand. When I say Kanda, it means chapter or the section, if you will. So in Kishkinda Kanda, Hanuman introduced in the second chapter. There are about 66 chapters in the Kishkinda Kanda. In that section alone, there are 66 chapters. In each chapter, there are so many verses. So in the second chapter, in the 13th verse, so fourth is the Kanda, the number of the Kandas. Out of 6, this is the fourth Kanda. So Bala Kanda is 1, Ayodhya Kanda is 2, Aranya Kanda, when he goes into the forest, that is 3. The fourth is Kishkinda, where he meets Hanuman and he forms friendship with Sugriba, the Vanaras, that species of very evolved monkeys, if you will. That is discussed in the 4th section. So you have number 4. Number 2 is the chapter. And the 13 is a verse in that chapter. So here, before we go to that exact moment where Hanuman comes in, I want to pause, and I want you to pause and absorb that moment, because Hanuman has become such a figure now, such a prominent deity, a power source, that we need to know, how did Valmiki bring him into, how did he weave this Hanuman into the story? What was their first meeting with Ram? How would it have been? So I wanted to highlight that. For me, as I read the Valmiki Ramayana, that this part became very, very beautiful and very serene. So here it shows Sugriva is in absolute fear. Why? Not only has he been banished by his own brother into the forest, and his brother has taken his wife as well, and so on, committed all these atrocities. So this valiant king, along with Hanuman and Jambavan and a few other warriors, have escaped and they are hiding in the forest. So in the forest, now they spot two princely looking human beings walking with bows and arrows. They seem like warriors. And so Sugriva's first thing was doubt. And he says, oh gosh, this must be Vali's men. They have come to spy on us. They're going to hunt us down and kill us. And he's petrified. One important thing we have to note here is Valmiki introduces Hanuman when Sugriva is trembling in fear. Tatastham bhaya samvignam Vali kilvisha shankitam. He is obsessed with this doubt. This must be Vali's men. They are going to do something to me, and so on. And at that point, when he is trembling in fear and doubt, then uvacha Hanuman vakyam. Okay, that is when Hanuman comes in and he speaks, and Hanuman and eloquence is almost synonym. You will notice it. Why? There is something very beautiful. Maybe many of us didn't think of it. We think of Hanuman as strength, strong. He flew here and there. He became big. He became small. All of that. But how many of us thought of Hanuman as being eloquent? But Valmiki has stressed this so much that one has to pause and understand what a beauty in that eloquence is. Strength reflected in his eloquence. His eloquence a reflection of the inner strength that Hanuman had. Hanuman, eloquent in communication, said to Sugriva. He knows when to speak, how to speak. And therefore so there's an adjective added to Hanuman. Even as Valmiki puts his name for the very first time in the Valmiki Ramayana. He says that Hanuman, who is very eloquent, he addresses Sugriva, who is trembling in fear. And guess what is the first words Hanuman says? What does he say? Relinquish your fear, relinquish your agitation. This is the shabdas that come out of this divine energy in the story of Valmiki. Relinquish your agitation. So he might have spoken before in his life and all of that, right? That is our imagination. But how does Valmiki introduce him to us? How is the first time he's coming into us? What is the first words that come out of Hanuman's mouth? Relinquish. Sam brahmas tyaja, tyaga. So relinquish your agitation. I'm not going to read these Sanskrit verses. We will do that Sanskrit reading as Parayana when we come to Sundarakand. But I'm just going to give the essence and let us enjoy and like any warm-ups, we'll warm up to that. So he says, relinquish your agitation. What are you afraid? In this great mountain that we are now, the Malaya mountain, I've highlighted Malaya because when I googled where exactly Malaya mountains are, they pointed out to Karnataka area, the Hampi region, the southern part of the Western Ghats and so on, all of that. So he says, we are in the safest mountain. What are you afraid of? There is no fear of Vali here. My dear brothers and sisters, at this very moment when you and I are doing the Sundarakand, this becomes so pertinent, right? So right in a context of what we are all experiencing in the context of this viral fever. We oftentimes create so much agitation in our minds, imagining a lot more than what is actually there. Right? We create fear psychosis, and in that fear we decide to act, and no act done in that fear can be a wise act. And therefore the first thing that we have got to tackle, especially in these days when we are having this fear of virus, and what if I get it? What will happen if my parents get it? Where will I go? What will I do? There is lockdown and this and that, especially in India as we speak. It's all over the news, right? So first thing you want to do is remember Hanuman's words. These are the very first words. Relinquish your agitation. In this great mountain range of Malaya, there is no fear of Vali. Relinquish. First he says, Sugriba, he doesn't say, I am here, why are you afraid? I will protect you. None of that. He says, first step is relinquish. Because by sitting at home, watching television and watching all this media and watching the debates and the arguments and everybody wanting to blame this government or that party and this and that, who's telling lies, who's telling truth, and confusing your mind and creating a lot of this agitation, the first thing Hanuman tells you, relinquish. Chhod do. Rehne do usko. Put that one side. Don't get agitated. First, relinquish agitation. Agitation, fear, Brahma, illusion, imaginations, right? First, relinquish that. First step. So, Hanuman has a message for you and me, and imagine this 1,000,000 years ago he told Sugriva, it is applicable to this day in 21st century in an entirely different yuga, Kali Yuga. His words are immortal. Relinquish your agitation. There is no fear. These are the words of Hanuman. So this is how Valmiki introduced, and I thought it is important for us to ponder and contemplate and spend a few minutes thinking about that. And then comes the, and Hanuman continues. So I'm not going verse by verse, but there is two very beautiful parts here. I thought is very important for us to remember. This is part of this is now verse 17, right? If you go back, it was verse 14, 4 to 14. Now it is 4 to 17. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, he's telling Sugriva, don't be afraid, this, that. And so in two important verses caught my mind because they're applicable to us even today. The others are too, but like I said, if I go into that, we will never finish this. So he says, it is very clear that this monkey trait is making your mind restless. It is very clear. I can see it. One who has weak self-esteem, the Sanskrit word uses lagu chitta. Lagu, we talk of lagu udyana, lagu mula bandha. Lagu means simple. Lagu is soft. Lagu is weak. Right? When we talk of bandha, say apply a weak bandha to this. Don't go over. So lagu chitta means a weak chitta. So lagu chitta tayatmanam, that is the term he has used. Lagu chitta tayatmanam, atmanam. The self-esteem is very weak. And one who has a weak self-esteem can never be steady. Oh, will it happen? Will it not happen? I'm not sure. What if I do a mistake? What if I say this mantra wrong? Or I don't know if we can complete this 111 days. Should I even start it? What happens if I'm not able to complete it? All this, these imaginary fears, why do they come? They come out of a weak self-esteem. The I in me is very weak, and therefore every thought that is processed by the I also becomes drained of all energy, because it gets reflected in this definition of who I think I am. Baba would often say, there are three in you, people in you. The one you think you are is one. The one others think you are is the second person in you. The one you really are is the third person, often hidden from our conscious mind. So this is a weak self-esteem, and he can never be steady. And he says it is very clear. I can see it. Aho, shakha mrigatvam, from your animal trait, from your monkey trait, I can see that your mind is restless. So don't have this self-esteem, low self-esteem. This is Hanuman's first words for you and me as we begin this yagna. Step into this yagna bravely. Meet every morning, get up with bravery in your heart, saying that come what may, I will face it. God has put me in this time, in this place, in this country, in this situation for a purpose. I will tackle this. Close your eyes and allow the strength of the divine and say, He will flow through me, He will act through me, He will speak through me, He will guide me. I know this in my heart. And let that build your self-esteem. Don't fall to the other choice where you say, oh God, why are you testing me? Where are you? What is happening? I am so confused. The more you say that, the more that will become real. When Arjuna spoke about low self-esteem, Arjuna said, I'm confused. I don't want to do this fighting in the war. I want to give away all the lands. Why am I doing all this? Oh Krishna. Krishna kept quiet. The first chapter in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna hardly spoke a word. It is the 11th verse of the second chapter when Krishna takes his whip and begins whipping Arjuna directly with self-knowledge, Atmajnana. And same thing here with Rama, with Hanuman. He keeps quiet. Then he whips Sugriba into shape. He says, it is very clear your monkey trait. Come on, stop it. This kind of self-esteem, low self-esteem and fear and agitation is not befitting. And therefore in the next, following that, very beautifully he says, this is again very important for us in general. He says, allow your wisdom and intellect to be reflected in your gestures and all your undertakings. Sarva bhutani. So, sarvam achara, right in the beginning he says, buddhi vijnana sampanna. This collection of wisdom and intelligence and intuition and all of that you have, let them be reflected in your actions, in your gestures, in your body language. How important was Hanuman paying attention to how you're conducting yourself. I am very fond of this because Baba, when we lived in the ashram for 15 years as students, would constantly remind us. How we sitting, he watches. How we stand, he watches. How we speak, he watches. Because of this. This is a fundamental Vedantic wisdom. It is not something given to us by modern self-improvement techniques and so on and so forth. Look at this. This is Hanuman's wisdom. Valmiki written thousands of years ago. He says, let your wisdom and intellect reflect itself in your gestures. If you say, I'm calm, let your gestures prove that calmness. Let your body become a reflection of your breath. Let your breath become a reflection of the mind. That's how health, immunity, and all that builds. Because he was walking back and forth, he was shivering in fear, he says, don't do that. Because a king lacking such wisdom cannot command all beings. So in the word beings, yeah, I've used it in English, but the word he uses, sarva bhutani shastihi, shasana, administering, controlling, all the bhutas. Bhutas means the 5 elements. So if I want to be the king of 5 elements, if I want to control my health and have it under my control, then I need to allow my wisdom, my higher wisdom and higher intellect to guide my gestures, my actions, what I eat, what I see, what I speak, where I go, how I sit, how I stand, everything. So there is, to me as a student of yoga, I find this very fascinating, that in that pearls of wisdom that comes out of Hanuman's mouth, he shares this in detail. So this is not my imagination. That's why I'm putting out these verses. These are Valmiki's own words. And thus, he advises Sugriva. And therefore Sugriva says, okay, Hanuman, since you are the best person, why don't you go and meet them? Be nice to them. Don't aggravate them. We don't want any, because he's still nervous, right? So he says, don't aggravate them. Just go meet them gently and extend a friendly hand. See what it is. Go inspect. Go meet them and see what it is. And so Hanuman goes to meet Rama and Lakshmana. Hanuman, that has now become a synonym with Rama. Rama, that has become a synonym with Hanuman. How did they meet in the very first? Was it as dramatic? Perhaps, perhaps not. I don't know what you think, but I thought it was very beautiful that now we go to the 3rd chapter. The 2nd chapter of the 4th section was entirely the Sugriva being nervous and Hanuman telling him what to do. And then comes the 3rd chapter, is devoted entirely for this meeting of Hanuman with Ram. I think it's about 18-20 verses or so, if I remember correct. Nevertheless, so Hanuman, it's very interesting to note then Hanuman goes to meet Rama not in his original form. In his original form, he is big, he's hairy, he's a Vanara, he's strong, he's muscular. Right? He doesn't go like that to meet Ram. He goes as a mendicant, a humble Brahmin, a pious soul. Now, there is a hidden meaning. Why would Valmiki choose that to tell us this? What is he conveying to us in that story? What is Hanuman conveying to us story? What is this whole essence of you have to be a mendicant, you have to be a pious soul to meet Ram, not your own stature. Hanuman, who is a warrior, Hanuman who has already achieved great things in life, he has not yet realized his divine nature yet. Okay, that will come. That is where Sundarakanda and all that happens. But he has not realized that. But nevertheless, he's still a powerful warrior. He's fought many battles. And approaching a soldier as a warrior, you would just go and shake hands. How many of us, if our prime minister bows to somebody else, will say, why do you bow so much? And we make it a big deal, right? Two political leaders meet, each one has to be maintain their poise or whatever it is. So we believe in this external show of might and respect. Hanuman is the embodiment of knowing exactly how to convey. So his gestures was a reflection of his higher wisdom and intellect. Just what he spoke, he's doing it. So he assumes a humble form, which is very difficult for a warrior to do. But he changes his form, he becomes a mendicant, somebody who's a recluse, and he approaches Ram. There is humility, there is vinaya, as we call it. Reverentially he approaches Ram. Also, it is for us, I think, a more powerful lesson that Rama is a supreme Purusha, represents the supreme Purusha in the story. So when you approach him, there is but no other option than to be humble. Not to go to him and say, I am the king, why are you testing me? I am a businessman, why are you testing me? I am doing good to so many people. Why are you doing? Come on, help me, Ram. That is not how you approach. It doesn't mean you have low self-esteem. You have to understand the difference. You have to be humble and reverential and say, Ram, you are everything. The Shiva consciousness is everything. There is no difference between Shiva and Ram. These are names, right? But the Ram energy, the mantra energy is that. So that energy of Ram in that incarnation, he is everything. To come into his presence, you have to be as humble. And therefore Hanuman adopts that humility. Something guides him because he knows that is the best way. His higher wisdom guides him. And so he comes as a mendicant in front of Ram. So next time you go into your altar and sit in front of Hanuman and sit in front of Ram, sit in front of your Sadguru, sit in front of your God, know that how can I become Hanuman? How can I relinquish who I think I am and I become what you want me to be, a humble servant? And how can I approach you that way? And then comes an eloquent set of verses that Hanuman addresses Rama and Lakshmana together. We can't go into details because each verse needs attention. So I don't want to discredit or disrespect the words of Hanuman and Rama. So I'm just going to summarize it because I can't choose that because those are very beautiful. That's why go and check out that verses in the valmikiramayana.net or the IIT Kanpur website. Hanuman begins eloquently praising these two warriors. He says, what brings noble souls like you here? Looking at you, you seem to be of a noble lineage, and yet you seem tired. You seem glorious. You have bows and arrows that shine like devas, the weapons of the angels and the devas, and yet you are roaming around like human beings. It seems as though all the creatures are terrified of your presence and they retreat into the shadows. Who are you? And because of your presence, this lake, this Pampa lake, because that is where they meet. Again, there is a symbolism of a lake, a water, and Hanuman crossing the sea. Now, there's a water element that is there. Sometimes we'll explore this, but I'm throwing these ideas for you to meditate and see why Pampa lake. So that beautiful lake on the banks of which Rama and Lakshmana are seated, Hanuman comes and he says, this lake is getting brighter because of your presence. And he praises them very eloquently, very beautifully, yet not overpraising them. He uses very choice words. And then Rama tells Lakshmana after listening, and then Hanuman says in the end, I am Hanuman. I come from Sugriba to seek friendship. And then Rama speaks, not directly to Hanuman, something to ponder and contemplate. At this moment, he doesn't immediately respond to Hanuman. He tells Lakshmana, address Hanuman, because I think this Hanuman is a very learned scholar. He's telling Lakshmana. So he is not in turn praising Hanuman back. He is praising Hanuman, but he's talking to Lakshmana and praising him. It's almost like when you hear somebody praising you to somebody else, you know that is 100% authentic. If that person praises you on your face, you will be like, I wonder what he wants from me or what she wants from me, right? But if that person is talking to somebody else about you and they are words of praise, then you're like, oh, wow. Right? So there is maybe that, I don't know. But Rama tells Lakshmana, and again, Rama praises what? Does Rama praise Hanuman's stature? Rama is praising the eloquence of Hanuman. Again, comes back to eloquence. Valmiki says how eloquently Hanuman expresses his first addressing Rama and Lakshmana. And then Rama in turn tells Lakshmana, how eloquent is this minister of Sugriva. His words represent all the 4 Vedas. His grammar is so perfect. The pitch and the tone of his voice is so perfect. He speaks from the three places. What are the 3 places? The heart, he mentions that. The heart, the head, and the throat. So you have feelings, you have intelligence, and both of them come together in a perfect combination and they come out of your throat. It can't be pure, dry, intellectual stuff. Then it becomes too dry, right? It can't be over-emotional. It has to be a combination of these two. Then that's when wisdom comes in. So that is how they teach you in the olden Vedantic way of life and Sanatana Dharma way of life. So Rama explains, look at him. He's speaking and drawing the sounds, drawing the wisdom from all these 3 places, heart, head, and the throat. And his voice is not too loud, not too low. He's not overpraising, he's not underpraising. He chooses his words wisely, and so on. Rama goes on and on and on about Hanuman's eloquence. How important it is for the sound that emanates from our mouth. So when it emanates from our mouth, it's a reflection of what is going on here, correct? So the sound in our head, the sound in our mouth. This is what is Rama is attracted to Hanuman by Hanuman's eloquence. And he says, Sugriva is so lucky. How can a king like Sugriva ever achieve failure when he has such wonderful ministers and assistants like Hanuman? And therefore Lakshmana, address this great soul and tell him we have come in friendship and we want to seek and be in Sugriva's presence. Such a glorious point and a meeting point. I love that. We will continue this tomorrow because from here comes the next part of the story where now the Vanaras, so Rama meets Sugriva and Sugriva forms a friendship and then Rama helps him get back his kingdom and that story all goes on, right? And then seasons pass and then now Sugriva says, I'm going to send out the armies in search of Sita. So he sends them in the east, he sends them in the west, he sends them in the north. These are monkeys. They can travel very fast. A very powerful, strong hordes of monkeys sends them all in different directions. He says, you come back, you will die of shame. So don't come back if you're not found Sita. Go and find Sita for me. But all these directions, people come, the Vanaras come back saying, we searched everywhere, but Sita is not there. Then he handpicks Hanuman, Jambavan, his mightiest of warriors. And he sends them south. He says, go south. There is no other way, but it has to be in the south. Sita has to be somewhere in south. And therefore, a huge army of Vanaras come towards the south, all the way to the seashore. They are finally standing on the edge of India. In those days, it would have a much larger landmass, of course. Sri Lanka was much bigger, because we talk of 1,000 miles difference between India and that seashore and Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka was much bigger. And that's how scholars interpret these things, because over a million years, a lot of landmass and water has caused a lot of changes, right? So they are standing on the edge of the sea, not knowing what to do. And that's where a dying eagle tells them, I can see with my eyes, I can see Lanka. I see a forlorn lady sitting under a tree. I think that must be Sita. So with that faint glimmer of hope, all these monkeys are now excited. What happens next? We will see tomorrow. Which of the monkeys said what? What are the names of these great Vanaras that Valmiki mentions them? If they were not important, Valmiki would not have mentioned them. So Valmiki mentions 7 or 8 Vanaras by name. And then, of course, he comes to Hanuman. So tomorrow we will continue to understand the basis of that. And then we will begin studying these wonderful exploits of who this Hanuman is. Is he simply an eloquent scholar? Or is he a mighty warrior? Is he a humble servant? Who is this Hanuman? What is so magical about this divine being? We will study this in the course of the next few weeks and days as we go along. So may his energy guide us. May the energy of Rama guide us. May the divine guide us. And let us lose ourselves in the contemplation of these powerful divine beings that when we invoke, they will manifest in our consciousness. And that manifestation alone will cause all darkness, ignorance, and illnesses to go away. Let us end the satsang with Hanuman Chalisa. Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raj Nij Man Mukur Sudhar Baranau Raghubar Bimal Jasu Jodayak Phalachar Buddhihina तनु जानी के सुमिरो पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरहु कलेश विकार जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीस तिहु लोक उजागर रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीता राम 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 जय सीता राम राजा राम सीता राम प्रताप महाजगबंदन राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीताराम राम राम जय सीताराम राजा राम सीताराम साई राम 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 विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर राम काज करिबे को आतुर प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया राम लखन सीता मन बसिया सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे रामचंद्र के काज सवारे राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीताराम राम राम जय सीताराम राजा राम सीताराम साई राम 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 लाए सजीवन लखन जियाए श्री रघुवीर हर्षि उर लाए रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरत ही सम भाई सहस बदन तुम्हारो जस गावे अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा नारद सारद सहित अहिसा राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीताराम राम राम जय सीताराम राजा राम सीताराम साई राम 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 जब कुबेर दिगपाल जमाते कभी कोविद कही सके कहाँ ते तुम उपकार सुग्रीव ही कीन्हा राम मिलाए राजपद दीन्हा तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना युग सहस्र योजन पर भानु लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानु राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीताराम राम राम जय सीताराम राजा राम सीताराम साई राम 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 प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माही जलधि लांघि गए अचरज नाही दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हारे तेते राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होतन आज्ञा बिन पैसारे सब सुगल है तुम्हारी शरणा तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीताराम राम राम जय सीताराम राजा राम सीताराम साई राम 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 तीनों लोक हाँकते कांपे, भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे, नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा, संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे, राम राम जय राजा राम, राम राम जय सीताराम, राम राम जय सीताराम, राजा राम सीताराम, साई राम 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 राम। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा, और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे, चारों जुग परताप तुम्हारा है, प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा, साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे, राम राम जय राजा राम, राम राम जय सीताराम, राम राम जय सीताराम, राजा राम सीताराम, साई राम 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 राम। अष्ट सिद्धि नौ निधि के दाता, असवर दीन जानकी माता, राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा, तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे, अंत काल रघुबरपुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई, राम राम जय राजा राम, राम राम जय सीताराम, राम राम जय सीताराम, राजा राम सीताराम, साई राम 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 राम। और देवता चित्त न धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई, संकट कटे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा, जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की नाई, जो शत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूटहि बंधि महासुख होई, राम राम जय राजा राम, राम राम जय सीताराम, राम राम जय सीताराम, राजा राम सीताराम, साई राम 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 राम। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होए सिद्धि साकी गौरीसा, तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा, की जयनाथ हृदय महाडेरा, की जयनाथ हृदय महाडेरा, पवन तनय संकटहरण मंगलमूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसहु सुरभूप राम राम जय राजा राम 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 जय सीताराम राम राम जय सीताराम राजा राम सीताराम साई राम 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 समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्त लोका सुखिनो भवन्तु. May all the beings in all the worlds be happy. जय बोलो पवन सुत हनुमान की जय सियावर रामचंद्र की जय सतगुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय नमः पार्वती पतये हर हर महादेव. शांति शांति शांति.